And thank you everyone for joining us for this session of Webinar Wednesday. Today, or last week, we introduced you to the new web forms in GeoSyncGO Plus. Today, we're going to actually take those web forms and create a workflow and take you through the steps of that. Some of the specifics on the web forms for the web form workflows. This is only available in GeoSyncGO Plus. You don't do this in desktop or the older Go mobile. It is a GeoSyncGO Plus feature. It is an enhancement to our regular workflow forms. Basically, it's a new interface with a lot of options and tools that you can utilize. The performance has been greatly improved with updating the map and getting refreshes. All the information is actually managed within or from GeoSyncGO Plus, either with an installed application or if you're utilizing the web browser app. So everything is done in GeoSyncGO Plus. We don't have to go to desktop. We don't go anywhere else. We can do it all here. You can even do this if you were out in the field and you needed to collect a new feature, a new set of features. You can actually build this on a tablet or on your phone if you needed to. So it's pretty impressive. Hope you like what we do here. So for today, we're going to look at just a very basic workflow. We're not going to use any existing GIS data. We're not going to import anything. We're going to create this workflow, the layers, and the map completely in GeoSyncGO Plus. We're going to do the forms. We're going to do the feature set, the map data layer. Everything's going to be done within GeoSyncGO Plus. Then we'll actually add and edit features for that workflow database. We will then, after of course, we'll view the map, and at the end there is an option if you want to export the data to use elsewhere, say your desktop GIS for some type of web mapping or spreadsheets, or you want to do a nice report in a Word document or something like that. So there's a way to export the data as well. So the scenario for today, our exercise. We are going to create a workflow for drainage culvert inventory. We want to go out in the field and locate drainage culverts. We want to document information about those culverts, so we'll want things like size, the length of the culvert, what the use, the usage, if it's public or private, residential or commercial, that type of thing. And then we may even want to edit the attributes after the fact. So we can do that. The steps that we'll go through to create the workflow: first, we'll need to create our data source. We'll make a layer connected to that data source. That's kind of standard GeoSyncGO Plus. Then we will design our web form. Again, in GeoSyncGO Plus, we'll create a project to pull all the layer and the forms and everything together. So we'll create a map project. We'll add our new layer that we've created to the project. We'll add and connect our web form that we've created to the project. Then we will collect, edit, and view features, and then export. Show you a little bit of a export step that we can do. So at that point, we will go to GeoSyncGO Plus. Carol, you have to edit that one out for me. To start off, you do have to sign in to GeoSyncGO Plus as an administrative user, a user with administrative rights. So I'm going to sign in. We will want to go to our account so we can actually make configure projects, layers, that type of thing. All the settings are done in the account menu. So the first thing we'll do, once we're in our account, we actually have to create a data source for the features that we want to store. So in this case, we'll go to Sources. We'll do a new source, and we'll give the source a name. We'll call this DRNGCULV for drainage culvert. Now, the type we will leave as empty because this is a brand new. We're actually creating this source, an empty source that we'll add to as we go. So this will be empty. There are other options under here I think we went over those in the intro, but the one we want for now is empty. The other options are utilize a shape file, import a shape file. It's basically the other options are basically for importing data or existing data, using that as your source. So today we're going to totally from scratch an empty works data source. So we're creating a drainage culvert, an empty shell. We'll save that, and yes, it is that simple. So now we'll need a layer to display our data as we collect it. So we'll go to layers. We'll select new, and this one I think I'll just call it culverts. The rest is pretty much standard GeoSyncGO. This whole layers is basic GeoSyncGO Plus configuration. This is just a standard layer. That's all it is. We just have to have a layer to display it, except the source. You can set your zoom levels and draw limits, priorities, style, everything just normal GeoSyncGO. The key here is the source. We'll actually select our drainage culvert source that we just created. We can't do a label field here yet because there's nothing in our source. We'll come back later and update that if we will. You could have another style if you want to select. I'm just going at this point just going to use the default style. The key here is we'll create a layer and select our new drainage culvert source. Save that. So now we have a source database. We have a layer connected to that source. So at this point, we really don't have anything in there. So the next thing we want to do is actually create our forms. Now, I mentioned that the database is empty. We'll create the form that has the fields that we want in our feature. Once we start collecting and using that form to collect new features, it will actually populate the database for us. We don't have to create all the fields in the database ahead of time. The form will do that for us. We go to our forms. This will be a new item in GeoSyncGO Plus. It's just been released recently. You'll see this forms option or menu here. So we'll go to our forms, and we don't have anything at the moment for our drainage culverts, so we'll create a new form. We'll call this culvert inventory. We'll select our source. We'll collect our drainage culvert source. And our destination, in this case, we'll also do a drainage culvert, the database. And this one we're doing very basic, so everything we pull into the form is going to come from our drainage culvert and be written to our drainage culvert. The reason for this is there are some advanced workflows, which we'll discuss at a later time, where you can actually pull information from one layer and write it one data source and utilize it in another. So that's more advanced. This point we're going to use just our drainage culvert data source. The method overwrite is we're going to use the overwrite method for this. It's overwrite and append. Overwrite means whenever we edit a record, we're just going to overwrite what's there. If we open a culvert location, we make a change, it just updates it. It just overwrites it. The other one, you actually append multiple features. Again, that's one of the more advanced features. So overwrite is a standard, just heads up, write data to the feature or added a feature. So we will get used to saving here. We'll save as we go. So now we have our basic form created. We've got our data sources identified and our update method. So now the thing we need to do, we need to have fields in our form to fill out. And we do this by, one last thing. When we select our overwrite method, you do need to add that to the form. That one, when you select your method, you actually add that and it writes it here. So you do have that. You have to add that to your form structure. So now, we have to add some fields. So we'll use the add field. And you'll notice, as we discussed in the previous webinar, you have a number of different types of fields that we can access. For the first one, I want to know what road name what road this culvert is on. So I'll just use a text field. So it's added a new field called text. So I've added the field of a specific type. So now I want to edit that, and I'll call it my label road name. The source field, the actual field name, you don't want to use any spaces, so I'll just do road name in those spaces. This is the actual name of the field itself that's going to be created in the database. The label is basically just a display, your alias, if you will. So destination field, source field, those will be the same as we're doing. We're using the override method. You can actually have this required, or you can even disable a field if you want, and you can even put in a default value. I'm not going to use any of those for this field. So once we're finished, we simply close that. When we've already created it. So now we have the first field called road name text. We'll also need to, let's add a few more. We'll want to know the size of this culvert. And I think I'll just use a text again for this. I think we'll wrap all this up into one field. So a new field there I need to edit. We'll call this our label. We'll say this is culvert size, and that is, let's do both diameter in inches and length in feet. Just put it all in one, like diameter and length. Source field, let's call this size. Or size. This one I think we want to make required, because why go out and inventory if you're not going to get a size. No default value there. You could if you want, but for this I don't think we will. Close. So now I've got road name, and I have my size field. And you notice in the listing here they are actually listed as the alias or the description. Let's add a little different type. Let's go for material now. We'll want to do, let's say, check boxes for the material. Where are my check boxes? So we added a checkbox field, and it's a new field in the list. We'll edit that. We'll call this material. And our source field, we'll call it material. Material. Well, let's require this as well. And as we go down here, the options, since we selected checkbox, the first option label, we'll call that, let's say, steel. The next one will have concrete. And say we need more than two. We simply add a new option. Scroll down. And this one will say plastic. And let's use one here. Let's call it the clay tile. I don't know if that's, let's say clay. It's really old culvert. Don't want those. So, got those set up. Those are check boxes. Save there. Let's do another one. Let's do a drop down for our flow condition. So drop down, let's say, edit that, and we'll call this flow condition. Source field, we'll call it culvert flow. Again, same destination field, culvert flow. let's not require this one. We'll say this is a clear flow, it's clear. And another option will say obstructed. So that's the only two I want for now. Close that. We may want to know when this was actually inspected. So we can say, let's add a date field. And go down our list. Here's our date field. Let's edit it. And the field name will say inventory last inspected. Last visited. Let's do that. Visit. And let's leave it. Let's use the correct date. So we'll have to put that in for us. Let's do one more in case we want to do comments. So we'll add a field, and for comments we'll use paragraph. So it's been added to the end of our list. We'll edit this, and this one really all we'll do is just change the label to comments and comment, and we'll close. Again, we need to save these. I've done quite a bit that they haven't saved, so we'll save the form, and at this point the form is complete. So now we have a data source. We've got a layer that's actually going to consume that or display that data source, and we have a form that we can use to populate features information into the data source to be shown in the layer. Okay, so now we'll actually need to pull a project together. This is standard GeoSyncGO stuff. We'll want to have a project where we can basically a map. We will create our map, and to do that in GeoSyncGO, you have a project. I already have a project started here that will edit, or you can do a new one to start from scratch. But just for time's sake, I went ahead and just did a basic project here. I'll edit that, and you can see I've given it a name. I've got the zoom level, the standard stuff for creating a project. What we'll need to do in this case, we'll actually want to look at our we've got a project. We've got users, and we'll want to add our layer. So we'll want to add our culvert. Where did we go? Oh, culverts. I just called it culverts. Okay. So we'll add our culverts layer, and again, that's standard GeoSyncGO Plus setup. So we've got a layer. We've got our culverts layer. Got a project. We've added our culverts layer. Of course, I've already done tile sets, and we'll need to add our forms. Our form, in this case, we're just going to add our culvert inventory form to that project. And at this point, we'll save. So I have a project. I've added my culverts layer and my culvert inventory form to that project. So now we can access all the information, the data source, the layer, the forms, the mapping. We pull that all together in the map view. So at this point, we will go to one thing we do want to change. I remember we talked about the source that we set up, or I'm sorry, the layer. We did not specify one piece here because we didn't have it before. On the source, we didn't have the field name, which we won't until we actually add something. So we won't worry about the label field at this point. Sorry. Let's go back now and use this project that we've created. Here's our culvert inventory project. You can see we have our layer culverts. So now to collect features, it's just like any other GeoSyncGO workflow project, you can, if you have GPS connected, if you're on a tablet, which I'm on a laptop, I can't do this, but you can just enable the GPS so you can see where you are on the map and use that. If you are using a GNSS device, you can actually go to settings and specify that high precision GPS device connected to your GeoSyncGO Plus application. For now, I don't have GPS connected, so we're going to do this manually. We found a culvert right here. So I'm on a Windows device, so I just right-click. If you are on iOS or Android, you click and hold. Starts a new feature. Standard GeoSyncGO feature collection. Select my form and my report. Here's my culvert inventory that we created, and we'll call this MapSync Boulevard. Size of the pipe, say it's a 12-inch and 24 feet long. It's a steel pipe. It's a flows clear. We've got today's date, and we'll fill out our comments. Save that, and very shortly we will have a point on the map describing, locating that the culvert. We can move on ahead. Set another one. Say culvert inventory. We'll do on the same road. This one's a 14-inch and 30 feet. And it's plastic. I don't know why you would do that, but let's see. We'll do. It's clear. It's not obstructed. We've got a date. We can put in notes and save that one as well. And our feature pops up on the map. So it is actually that quick. I mean, that easy to do. You create a source, in this case an empty source. We create a layer, create a web form, add those to a project, and start collecting locations. And when we actually added these new locations, we collected these new culvert locations, that started building our records in our data source that we created. So that's done by the form itself. When we collect data, it populates everything in the database for us. We can actually go back and edit these features. I can select those here and do a new collection, but in this case it's X and override. So here's when I edit that again, the previous information shows up. So I can say, oh, that was really a 20-foot culvert. Save. So we've actually updated that culvert information. See, 12-inch, 20 feet. So now, if we want, we can actually export these new features for use somewhere else, if we want. If we go to, go back to our account and sources, or sorry, where's snapshots? Here it is. This is another new feature. Snapshots. We actually would create a snapshot of the data that we have. So if I go to snapshots, the new, I can give it a name. We'll say culverts 03/01/2017, today's date. And then we pick our type. You can export this out as a CSV, a GeoJSON file, or a KML. At this point, say I just want to pull these up in a spreadsheet and do some custom reporting to it. I'll do a CSV. Then you pick the layer that you want to export, and this can be done. The snapshots can be done for any layer. It's just something new that was added. Wanted to show you guys. Where are my culverts? And I save. So it's actually created an export. That is it as far as the steps and the process to create a basic web form, a basic workflow utilizing the new web forms. There's a lot more to come on this subject, the web forms. We have some more webinars planned for describing the integration with ArcGIS, how we can use the web forms, integration with QGIS using web forms, and also we will have some more webinars showing a little more advanced concepts and ideas for utilizing our web forms. That's all I have. Thank you for joining us.